Marcus was 9 years old when he learned that dignity doesn't pay the bills, but sometimes it's all you have. It was a Tuesday in October in Chicago, and he was standing on the corner of Michigan Avenue in the Gold Coast neighborhood with his red BMX bike. The cardboard sign hanging from the handlebars read in careful letters, "For sale $60, Mom needs money for food." He had chosen that neighborhood specifically. Gold Coast, where people had money. Where they could buy a used bike without thinking twice. Where $60 was nothing to them, but it was everything to his mother. David Chun was 38 years old, CEO of TechVision Solutions, and late for a $5 million acquisition meeting. His Audi A8 passed the child before his brain processed the scene. Then he slammed on the brakes. Not out of compassion, that was no longer a word in his business vocabulary. But because there was something disturbing about the image. A black child, alone, in a predominantly white neighborhood, trying to sell a bicycle. His first reaction was irritation. Where was neighborhood security? This wasn't allowed. Then curiosity. He had built an $80 million company through pattern recognition, behavior analysis. And something here didn't fit. He parked and walked over to the boy. Marcus saw him approaching, $3,000 suit, shiny Italian shoes, that posture that screams money. Hope and fear competed in his chest. "How much?" David asked, pointing to the bike with the kind of casual disdain of someone who has never worried about $60 in his life. $60, sir, Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "It's in perfect condition. I take very good care of it." David examined the bike. It was clearly loved, well-maintained but old. The tires were worn but functional. There were carefully applied stickers, Black Panther, Chicago Bulls, the public library. "Why are you selling it?" Marcus hesitated. His mother had taught him not to lie, but also to protect the family's dignity. "My mom lost her job last month. We need the money for food." David felt something strange, not exactly guilt, but an unease he couldn't name. "Where's your mom right now?" "At a job interview downtown. She'll be back in 2 hours." The answer came too quickly, rehearsed. The boy was clearly protecting his mother from appearing negligent. "How long have you been here alone?" "Only an hour." Another lie. Marcus had been there since 8 in the morning. It was almost 2 in the afternoon. David should leave. He should call social services. He should do anything except continue this conversation. But something kept him there. "What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Johnson." Johnson. The name echoed from somewhere in his recent memory. He had seen that surname. Where? "How old are you?" 9. "I'll be 10 in December." "Shouldn't you be in school?" Marcus looked down. "We moved last month. The new school district won't let me start until my mom proves residency. She's trying to get all the paperwork." David knew that bureaucracy. He had written editorials in the Tribune about how the Chicago education system failed low-income families. But he had never looked into the eyes of a real child living that failure. "Where did you move from?" "South Side. My mom couldn't pay the rent after she lost her job." That discomfort grew. "What kind of work did your mom do?" "She worked in tech. A big company downtown. She was really good at her job, but," Marcus paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, "her boss didn't care when I got sick. She asked for a day off to take me to the hospital, and he fired her." The discomfort turned into something icy down David's spine. "What company?" Marcus looked at him with those big, intelligent eyes, completely unaware that he was about to drop a bombshell. TechVision Solutions. She said her boss was an Asian guy who only cared about money. David Chen's world stopped spinning. 1 month ago. Cost-cutting meeting. 3 layoffs to improve margins before the investment round. One of them, a woman from the operations department who had asked for a day off for her son's medical emergency. Son. Not daughter. His assistant had presented the names. He had approved them without looking at the details. "Inconsistent performance," said the HR report. He hadn't even asked what that meant. And now that inconsistent performance was standing in front of him at 9 years old, selling his bike so his mother could eat. "Do you know your mother's boss's name?" Marcus shook his head. "My mom doesn't talk about him." She just cries sometimes at night when she thinks I'm asleep. David felt bile rise in his throat. David Chun hadn't gotten where he was by being sentimental. He built TechVision from scratch, working 100 hours a week, making tough decisions that others wouldn't. Firing people was part of the business. You didn't build a successful company by being soft. But as he looked at Marcus, something in that philosophy began to crack. Your mom, has she gotten another job? She's trying. But everyone asks for references, and she can't use TechVision. Marcus kicked a rock on the ground. She's applied for 37 jobs. I'm counting. 37. The 9-year-old boy was counting his mother's job applications. Do you guys have a place to live? My mom's friend lets us sleep on her couch. She's nice, but she has 3 kids. We can't stay much longer. Marcus looked at David with cautious hope. So, will you buy my bike? David should buy the bike, give the boy $100, and walk away. Never think about it again. That's what the David of a month ago would have done, if he had stopped in the first place. But something had changed at the last minute. Some crack had opened in his armor as a ruthless CEO. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Don't you want the bike? The disappointment in the boy's voice was devastating. It's not that. It's just that. David took a deep breath. I'm David Chun, CEO of TechVision Solutions. I'm the one who fired your mother. Marcus stood completely still. His eyes widened, processing the information. Then he took a step back, holding the bike up as a shield. You, his voice came out as a whisper. You're the man who made my mother cry. The accusation, so simple and direct, hit David like a punch in the stomach. Marcus, I didn't know. You didn't care. The boy's voice rose, years of pent-up frustration finally exploding. My mom said you didn't even look at her when security took her away. She worked there for 3 years. 3 years. And you threw her away like trash. People began to stop on the sidewalk, watching the scene. A wealthy man being confronted by a black child. Some pulled out their cell phones. David knew he should be concerned about his image, about the possible repercussions on social media. But at that moment, all he could see were Marcus's eyes shining with unshed tears. You're right, David said quietly. I didn't care. And that makes me exactly the kind of person I used to despise. Marcus blinked, surprised by the admission. Where is your mother doing this interview? I'm not telling you. Marcus gripped the handlebars of his bike. You're going to get her in trouble for leaving me alone. I won't. I promise. But I need to. I need to fix this. You can't fix it. Marcus shouted. My mom lost our apartment. I can't go to school. We're sleeping on a couch. You can't just say sorry and make everything better. He was right. Apologies didn't pay rent. They didn't put food on the table. They didn't restore stolen dignity. You're right. But I can start. David took out his wallet and removed all the money, $320. Here. For food. Marcus looked at the money as if it were a trap. I don't want your charity. It's not charity. It's restitution. David put the money in the basket on his bike. And I'm going to rehire your mother. With a raise. My mom won't work for you again. She said she'd rather clean toilets than work for someone without a soul. The words cut deep, precisely because they were true. At that moment, a woman ran across the sidewalk toward them. In her 30s, wearing an inexpensive but neat business suit, her hair carefully pulled back in a bun. Her face marked by chronic stress, but still beautiful. Determined. She saw Marcus with David Chun and the blood drained from her face. Marcus, get away from him. Tamara Johnson placed herself between her son and his former boss, arms outstretched protectively. Don't you dare touch my son. David backed away, hands up. Mrs. Johnson, I wasn't. I know exactly what you were doing. Checking to see if we're going to sue? We're not. We don't have money for a lawyer, and you know that. Her voice trembled with contained rage. Then just leave us alone. Tamara. No. Don't you dare. She pronounced each word like a bullet. You have no right to use my first name. You have no right to pretend we're equals. You fired me without a second thought, and now my son is selling his bike to buy food. Mom, he knows, Marcus interrupted. I told him you worked at TechVision. He figured out it was him. Tamara looked from Marcus to David, processing. You came here to brag? I came here because I stopped and saw your son alone selling a bike. I didn't know who he was until he told me. Convenient. It's true. David looked directly at her. And you have every right to hate me. But Marcus is right about one thing, I didn't care. Not once did I ask why you needed the day off. Not once did I consider that you had a life outside of work. Exactly. Mom, Marcus tugged at her sleeve. He put money in my basket. $300. Tamara looked at the money as if it were poison. We don't need your charity. It's not charity. It's the least I can do. David took a deep breath. Ms. Johnson, I'd like to offer you your job back. With a 20% raise and full benefits. Go to hell. The response was so direct that David almost smiled. Almost. I understand your anger. You don't understand anything. Tamara took Marcus's hand. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go. But Mom, the money. Leave it. Mom, please. Marcus looked between the two adults. It's $300. That's 5 weeks of food. The struggle played out on Tamara's face. Pride versus need, dignity versus hunger. David saw the exact moment when need won out, and it hurt more than anything she could have said. Fine. She took the money from the basket, her hands shaking. But that doesn't change anything. I don't want your job. All right. But may I ask, how did the interview go today? That's none of your business. Did they ask for references? Tamara was silent. That was answer enough. Let me do this, David said. Don't go back to TechVision if you don't want to. But let me give honest references. You worked for me for 3 years. Your performance was excellent until I decided people were disposable resources. Why? Tamara stared at him. Why do you suddenly care? Because your son made me see what I've become. David looked at Marcus. He confronted me with more courage than most adults I know. And you raised him that way while fighting a system built to make you fail. Don't you dare do this about you feeling better. It's not about that. Or at least, it shouldn't be. David ran his hand through his hair, genuine frustration showing. Look, I don't have a script for this. I don't know how to fix what I did. But I do know Marcus shouldn't be selling his bike. You shouldn't be choosing between rent and food. And that's my fault. 1 month, Tamara said quietly. 1 month ago, I had a job, an apartment, stability. Marcus was in a good school. We weren't rich, but we were okay. And you destroyed that in 5 minutes. 3, David admitted. It took me 3 minutes to approve your resignation. I didn't even read the context. The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus looked at his mother. Mom, my teacher always said that everyone deserves a second chance. That teacher never had to choose between pride and feeding her child, Tamara replied, but her voice had lost some of its sharpness. Please, Mom. I just want to go back to school. I miss my friends. David saw the crack, but didn't press it. Instead, he took out a business card. My personal number is on the back. If you change your mind about the references, or anything, call me. Tamara took the card as if it burned her, but she kept it. Marcus, David turned to the boy. Can I buy your bike? What? Why? Because you shouldn't have to sell it. And because I want a reminder. David took out his wallet again, grabbed his checkbook. How much is it worth to you? Really? Marcus looked at the bike. My dad gave it to me before he left. It's the only thing I have of his. Then it's priceless. David wrote a check for $1,000. But I'll buy it anyway. And you'll buy it back when your mother is back on her feet. For $60. That's not how selling works, Marcus said, confused. It's not selling. It's custody. David handed the check to Tamara, who stared at it as if it had grown a second head. You're crazy. Probably. But the bike will stay in my office. And when you're ready, Marcus can come pick it up. Why would you do that? David looked at them both. Because my father worked 3 jobs to put me through college. He died of a heart attack when I was 16. I built TechVision using his life insurance money, telling myself I was honoring his sacrifice. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what sacrifice was. I forgot that real people with real lives depended on the decisions I made in 3 minutes. Surprising tears stung his eyes. Your son reminded me. And I can't turn back time. I can't give those 3 minutes back. But I can start doing things differently. Tamara studied his face for a long moment. 1 call. 4 references. And then I never want to see you again. Fair enough. She took Marcus's hand. Come on, honey. Let's cash this check and buy some real food. As they walked away, Marcus looked back. Mr. Chen? Take good care of my bike, okay? I promise. And Marcus? Thank you for telling me the truth. Even when it hurt. After they turned the corner, David stood alone on Michigan Avenue with a 9-year-old red BMX. He called his assistant. Cancel all my meetings for today. Sir, the acquisition. Fuck the acquisition. I need to reevaluate how we handle layoffs. Excuse me. Every layoff in the last 2 years. I want the complete files. I want to know who these people were, why they were laid off, and what happened to them afterward. That's more than 50 people, sir. Then you have your work cut out for you. David hung up, put his bike in the back seat of his Audi, and drove back to the office. In the rearview mirror, he saw Marcus and Tamara entering a bank. The boy was jumping excitedly. His mother maintained her wounded but intact dignity. David Chun had made thousands of business decisions in his life. Only now did he realize that he had never thought about the real cost of any of them. 3 weeks later, Tamara Johnson was sitting in the reception area of an accounting firm in Lincoln Park, waiting for her 5th interview. The suit was borrowed from a friend. The resume, carefully edited to minimize the 1-month gap. Her cell phone vibrated. Unknown number. Hello. Ms. Johnson? This is Karen Mitchell from Peterson and Associates. We called David Chun at TechVision as a reference. Tamara froze. She had listed TechVision on her resume because 3 years of tech experience was valuable, but she had given the HR number, not David directly. Oh, yes. He spoke very highly of you. He said your dismissal was a mistake on the company's part, not performance-related. That you were one of the most reliable employees he ever had. Tamara didn't know what to say. He also mentioned that you requested time off for your son's medical emergency, and that the company failed to accommodate you appropriately. He was very honest about their structural deficiencies. Karen paused. Mr. Chen also mentioned that if we didn't hire you, he would personally consider us idiots. Despite everything, Tamara almost smiled. So, Karen continued, when can you start? The call lasted another 10 minutes. When Tamara hung up, she had a job. Decent salary. Health benefits. Flexible hours for family emergencies. And a jumble of feelings about David Chun that she didn't know how to process. That night, after telling Marcus about the new job, he screamed so loudly that her friend came to see if everything was okay. Tamara picked up David's business card. It took her 20 minutes to send a 2-word text message. Thank you. The reply came within seconds. You deserve so much more than that. But it's a start. DC. Then another message. Did Marcus ask about the bike? It's in my office. I have visitors on Saturdays if he wants to see it. Tamara looked at her son doing his homework at the tiny dining table in the apartment they had finally managed to rent with her first paycheck from her new job. Marcus, honey? Yes, Mom. Would you like to visit your bike on Saturday? His eyes lit up. Really? Can I? You can. David Chen's office on the 47th floor overlooked the loop. Usually empty on Saturdays, today it had a CEO, a single mother, and a 9-year-old boy. The red BMX was mounted on a special stand against the glass wall, treated like art. Wow, Marcus whispered, running up to it. You really took good care of it. I promised. David watched the boy check every detail of the bike. I clean it every week. Tamara studied the office. Minimalist, expensive, but the child's bike completely changed the energy of the space. There was something surreal about it. Why? She asked quietly. Why what? Why do all this? The reference, the bike, keeping in touch. You don't owe us anything anymore. David turned to her. I owe everything. Or at least, an acknowledgement that I built my success without considering how much it cost other people. That's very philosophical. But it doesn't answer my question. Because Marcus asked me a question that no one else had the courage to ask. What question? When he yelled at me on Michigan Avenue, he asked how I could throw someone away like trash after 3 years. And I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Marcus was testing the bike's brakes, oblivious to the conversation. So this is about your guilt? Tamara asked. Partly. But it's also about change. We've restructured the entire termination policy. Now we have a real review process, consideration of personal circumstances, transition packages. David ran his hand through his hair. I've also set up a fund for employees facing hardship. Very noble. It's not about nobility. It's about not being a jerk. He stared at her. And about making sure no other kid has to sell their bike because I can't see people as people. Tamara processed this. You know what sucks? What? Part of me still hates you. For the humiliation of being escorted out. For Marcus seeing me cry. For having to choose which bill not to pay. You should hate me. But another part, she hesitated. Another part sees you really trying. And that's confusing. Marcus came back to them. Mr. Chun, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you fire my mom if she was so good at her job? David crouched down to the boy's height. Because I wasn't paying attention. I let numbers on a spreadsheet tell me she was expendable. And that makes me exactly the kind of person my father tried to teach me not to be. Did your father teach you to apologize? He tried. I should have listened better. Marcus thought about that. My mom says sorry doesn't fix things. But it's where fixing starts. Your mom is very wise. I know. Marcus smiled. So, when can I buy my bike back? When your mom says you're back on good terms. My mom just got a job. We have an apartment. Aren't we okay now? Tamara put her hand on her son's shoulder. Honey, okay takes longer than 3 weeks. But I miss my bike. You can visit it whenever you want, David offered. On Saturdays. And you can ride it in the parking lot if your mom agrees. Marcus looked at Tamara with puppy dog eyes. Okay, she sighed. But only in the parking lot where it's safe. Marcus's cry of joy echoed through the empty office. 6 months later, David Chun was sitting in an industry conference when he saw Tamara walking across the convention hall. She was wearing her Peterson and Associates badge, chatting animatedly with colleagues. She saw him, paused, then waved briefly. Progress. Marcus still visited the bike on Saturdays. Sometimes Tamara came, sometimes she didn't. When she did, they talked, cautiously at first, then more naturally. About work, about Marcus, about how impossible Chicago was in the winter. Never about what had happened. That was still too raw-wound. But one thing had changed. Tamara didn't hate him anymore. Not completely. There was room now for something more complicated, the recognition that people were more than their worst moments. David had no illusions. He wasn't the hero of this story. He was the villain who was lucky enough to be confronted by a child with too much courage and a mother with unbreakable dignity. The bike remained in his office for 8 months. Then Marcus, now 10 years old and finally back in school full-time, showed up with $60 saved from his allowance. I'm ready to buy it back. David looked at the money, then at the boy who had grown several inches. Are you sure? It's fine here. I know. But it's time. Marcus counted the bills carefully. 3 $20 bills. Like we agreed. Like we agreed. David took the money, then gave it back. Actually, I changed my mind. Consider it a gift. But that wasn't the deal. Deals change. This one is about you being strong enough to offer, and me being smart enough to recognize that some things are more valuable than money. Marcus hugged the bike as if it were an old friend. Then, surprisingly, he hugged David. Thank you for taking care of her. Thank you for taking care of me when I forgot how to be human. 2 years after that, David Chun was giving a lecture at Northwestern University School of Business on corporate ethics. He always ended with the same story. 3 years ago, a 9-year-old boy confronted me with more moral courage than I had shown in my entire career. He was selling his bike to buy food because I had fired his mother without considering the consequences. He showed a photo, the red BMX against the glass wall of his office. That bike sat in my office for 8 months. Every day, I saw it and remembered that every decision I make affects real lives. That there is no such thing as just business when you're dealing with people's livelihoods. A student raised her hand. But don't CEOs have to make tough decisions? Sometimes people have to be fired. Yes. But tough decisions doesn't mean careless decisions. It means having the courage to look at the people you're affecting and making sure you're doing it. Yes. But tough decisions doesn't mean careless decisions. It means having the courage to look at the people you're affecting and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, in the right way. What happened to the mother and the boy? David smiled. Tamara Johnson is now CFO of Peterson & Associates. Marcus is in 7th grade and wants to be an engineer. And I learned that success measured only in profits is bankruptcy measured in humanity. Tamara was in the audience at that lecture. Marcus had insisted they go. He was writing a school project on people who made a difference. When David finished, he saw them. He waved. After the lecture, outside the auditorium, the 3 of them stood there uncomfortably for a moment. Good lecture, Tamara said finally. Thank you. I'm a better speaker when I know I'm telling the truth. Mr. Chun, Marcus interrupted, can I ask you a question for my school project? Of course. Do you think people can really change? Or do they just learn to hide who they've always been? David thought carefully. I think real change is possible. But only when something breaks through all the excuses we give ourselves. For me, it was a 9-year-old boy confronting me with my worst self. And are you better now? I'm trying to be. Every day. Some days are easier than others. That's honest, Marcus wrote in his notebook. My teacher says honest is the most important thing. Your teacher is right. Tamara touched Marcus's shoulder. Come on, sweetie. We have dinner plans. As they walked away, Marcus looked back. Hey, Mr. Chun. Yes. Thanks for keeping your promise. About the bike. Thanks for giving me a reason to keep promises again. David Chun never became a saint. He still made difficult decisions. There were still employees who disliked him. But now, before every significant decision, he would ask, how would I explain this to Marcus? The bike left his office, but the photo remained. A reminder that redemption is not a dramatic moment. It's choosing better, one day at a time, even when it's inconvenient. Even when it costs money. Even when no one is watching. Because somewhere in Chicago, a 9-year-old boy had been brave enough to confront a powerful man. And that man had been humble enough to listen. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough to start fixing the world. One bicycle at a time.